Not only did SWIV from 1991 have one large continuous map with continuous loading and some of the best sound effects you'll ever hear, but it's also full of surprises that I just found out. It's changing the palette all the time, and the sprite work is amazing. There's hardware sprites everywhere with all the shots. So there's lots to dive into. Let's check it out. The palette changes start right away. It's mainly a 16 color game. We'll pay close attention to these three colors right here. Right now you have this dark green and these dark browns, and the only place right now where they're being used is down here. You can see the dark browns and the dark greens. And then you can also see these grays here. So these three grays. So when I unpause it, watch what happens to these colors. They move down the screen. So once these grays get to the very bottom, and then we switch back, you can see there's no use for those dark greens anymore because they're gone. And then see how the gray stops about here. If you switch over to the palette visualizer, stops right there, and you get the dark green and dark browns again at the top that are used right here. So we're going to see that all throughout the level. If I restart it here with the copper visualizer, watch up here. There's these colors. So it's color 15, color 14, and color 13 that are the gray colors. And then down here, it's those same colors, 15, 14, and 13, that are the dark brown and dark green. So that palette is everywhere from here down, and this gray palette is everywhere from here down to here. As you can see perfectly with the palette visualizer, right there, here, and here. We can watch it move together. Just like that. It also has the bit plane pointers here changing for the buffers and for the scrolling. It's the copper split. So you can see that move down the screen too, right there. So as I said, the game is in 16 colors, 4 bit planes, except for this little strip here, which is in 5 bit planes. Now there's a great interview on the Code Tapper website with Ronald Piquet, the coder of SWIV. So I'll put a link to that down in the pinned comment. Yeah, it's a great article and I'll reference it a lot. So please check that out. So there he explained this little strip is for the score up here. And he's able to mask out the other bit planes and make it look like it's on top. And the way that he did that is that in the first 16 colors here, you can see that it's a recreation of the 16 colors down here. So we can mask it out that way. And then these 16 colors on this side are just the same color over and over again. Plus it's copperized. It changes there, and it changes there, and changes there. In the copper, you can also see that it goes from BBLCon 0 5200, so 5 bit planes right there, and then BBLCon 0 4200, 4 bit planes right here. And the cool thing is that these last three colors that we were just talking about how they change, well, they also change in this script too. Watch this. Right there. So the palette that's up here is always the same between this 16 colors and this 16. And if we do all the bit planes 0, 1, 2, and 3, you have everything except that strip. And if you put bit plane 4 on, there it is. So the other surprise was the extensive hardware sprite use. It was the prequel to this game Silkworm that hopefully I'll do a video on one day, where Ron first used sprites for all the shots. So it's not just your player shots, and it's not just player 2 and your shots, but it's also a lot of the projectiles from the enemies. So all these shots coming from me right now are all hardware sprites. If we pause it and we take off the sprites, boom, they're all gone. And then if you take off the bit planes and put on the sprites, we can look at them individually. So right here, sprite 0 is this bullet and this bullet. So they'd be 3 colors, 16 pixels wide. And then here's sprite 1, sprite 2, sprite 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So he uses all 8 sprites, even though if you look down here, you can see that the visible area is full PAL screen, 320 by 256. And as we mentioned in a lot of other videos, if you have horizontal scrolling, you lose some sprites if it's 320 wide. But because this game is vertical scrolling and doesn't horizontally scroll, so I think that's the reason he's able to keep all 8 sprites without any tricks like manually doing it with the copper or anything like that. So if we throw on the sprite visualizer and play it, watch this. All the colors of the sprites. And then watch this enemy. Look at him. He's going to shoot out a whole bunch of projectiles that are all sprites again. So here's sprite 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then that's on top of all my shots that are hardware sprites. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So his 8, so that's 16. And they don't always just have sprites 0 to 7. For example, right here, I have sprite 6 and sprite 6, so it reuses the same sprite channels. So from that interview, when talking about Silkworm, he said all hardware sprites for a frame are collected, sorted by Y but not X, and assigned to the available sprite channels in a rotating sequence. So I'm pretty sure it's a similar technique here in SWIV. So then CodeTapper asked him, if that is the case, is there ever a possibility that a sprite will vanish? Or did you somehow make sure you never have more than the maximum on a scan line? And Ron says it is more than possible. It happens all the time, especially in two-player mode with all guns powered up and under heavy attack. You don't notice it much because I rotated the sprite assignment so that every next frame a different sprite would be dropped. The result was that when there are more than the maximum number of sprites on a line, they would only flicker, not disappear for any length of time. This is a trick that I learned while programming MSX games which only had 4 hardware sprites. So if we try it here with 2 players and with the enemy shooting, look at all the sprites. Sprite mayhem. But I just found out that at least with emulation here, if you hold down auto fire, you can't do both at the same time. So you have to alternate auto fire from the helicopter, now auto fire from the Jeep. But if you do both at the same time, it just does one, not the other. So the one downside of all the mayhem is that you don't get a 50 frames per second game. It's usually 25 and sometimes even less than that when there's lots of craziness. But Ron said that they were going for intensity and mayhem over frame rate. As mentioned, it's one long continuous map. Ron said that it might have been the first game to ever have that, one huge continuous map. Here's the map from the Hall of Light website. I'm going to scroll down. Look at that. Volcano, ice, everything. Look at it go. All one continuous map. Look at beauty. And it all loads in the background without stopping from a continuous loop and the vertical blank. And I just noticed here that if you look at the palette visualizer, when we pause it, so this was normal before where it was changing color 13, 14, 15, but now it's changing color 10, 11, and 12 too. With the copper visualizer, you can see color 12, 11, and 10, color 15, 14, and 13 changing there. And here it is moving down the screen in real time. And this was always my favorite part as a kid. I'm going to put the sound on for a second, get ready for some amazing explosions and the great sound of these jets. Here's the blitter visualizer and the DMA stats. So you can see the enemies are all being blitzed and so is your helicopter, but not your shot. This whole area of these big gun turrets has its own palette. You can see these 3 colors are what they use. And it changes colors for this runway here, as you can see right there. You can really see it here. For some reason, for just a few pixels, they change the color. Look at the palette visualizer right there. And right after this, they go whole hog and change the most colors yet. Look at all those. So here we can see that it's color 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 all at one time. Transitioning into this zone here. Look at all the blips. And here we transition to the water and the palette. Again, lots of color change. So I think you get the picture now, but it happens a lot and it's very effective. If you're interested, I'm going to keep showing examples because I find it very fascinating. Just look at this example. Right here, you can see this gray rectangle, and then a little bit of dark green right there, and then light green, and then purple, and then this brown. And if you look at the palette visualizer, they took the time to make them all. The dark gray, the dark green, the purple, and the brown. So they were really showing what could be done with the Amiga and the copper. Here's from water back onto land, water colors back onto land colors. And all these spaceship shots, also sprites. And with this transition up here, they're really showing off. Check this out. They're copperizing all these. There's 45 colors. And look at the copper visualizer. Look at all those. Okay, now here's something different yet again. Usually they were only changing the colors on this side of the palette, but this time they're also changing them over here. So this one and this one and this one and also the red. So there's only one, the black, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 10 out of 16 are changed as we move into this next biome. And as we see in the copper visualizer here, they staggered them just a few lines. So they didn't have to do all the copper changes all in one scan line. And the flashing red in the palette, which is used a lot, you can see it right here, it slowly comes back onto the screen. This is another nice one when it transitions from the water to the beach. You can see here, lots of color change. And in this area, we even get to change these two colors that we didn't change before. So it looks like every color can be changed at some point except for color 0, the black background. You can see how many copper instructions it is here, all of these. In transitioning from the snow to the volcano world, we've got every single color except these three changing. So a pretty amazing game, super intense and super difficult, but what Amiga game wasn't? Hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you very much for watching. Always appreciate it. Please like and subscribe and comment if you haven't. And until next time, take care.